Hello guys, and welcome to this week's Penny Podcast. I'm Andrés Bear, I'm in 11th grade, and I am the Coppell Student Media Web Producer.
Hello, my name is Shreya Beldona, I'm in 10th grade and I'm a staff writer.
I'm Shivi Sharma, I'm in 10th grade and I'm a staff writer.
The Penny Podcast is a weekly hybrid podcast that incorporates elements of interview and conversation with rotating hosts.
Our first story comes from Anthony Cesario. His story, Gil Hotel, brings discussion startlingly close to home, published under our opinions section. Would you all consider that assembly to be oddly memorable? I would say that assembly was oddly memorable, especially because of the fact that these people at the hotel had guns and they were all these very aggressive people. It kind of opens your eyes to this isn't just a small community. We're a very big community with so many different people, and we have to be more aware of that.
Yeah. I think most people perceive Coppell as this very small, very positive place, and that's great, but it's kind of hard to believe that something like this was taking place so close. Our second story comes from Sally Parampottil. Her story, Stop the Clock, Attempts to Speed Up Baseball's Pace of Play Will Not Solve Popularity Issue, was published under our sports section. When's the last time y'all watched baseball?
Probably 10 years ago.
Yeah, exactly, 10 years ago. Elementary school?
Yeah. It's been, I'm not really a big fan of baseball, mostly because I don't understand it. But yeah, I think it's a cool sport still.
Definitely. Speaking of articles, there was a lot of music-oriented news that hit the waves recently. The country rap song by Lil Nas X titled Old Town Road started out as an underground hit making the rounds on apps such as TikTok and Instagram. The single eventually climbed its way to the top of the Billboard country charts, only to be later taken down because, in the words of Billboard, while Old Town Road incorporates references to country and cowboy imagery, it does not embrace enough elements of today's country music to chart in its current version. Is the song country enough for y'all?
To be honest, I think the song, it's kind of almost, I guess, in our culture considered a joke and a meme. And it's definitely a hybrid song. So I guess it's really up to Billboard to decide what they want to do with it. But in my personal opinion, I don't feel like it's country enough.
You know what else brings music to my ears? A solid sidekick staff member.
Hi, my name is Christine Zacuai. I am in 12th grade and I am the executive news editor at The Sidekick.
So why did you join The Sidekick?
I think in general we can all, as high schoolers, we all understand that, as it is a minor fraction of our entire life, we spend a lot of time trying to figure out where we belong or whatnot. So I specifically remember I was walking out of my math class, junior year, I think, or no, sophomore year, and I picked up an issue and I saw the design, I saw the stories in it, and to be quite honest with you, I didn't even know we had a school newspaper. So that was kind of the defining moments where I decided to join the Sidekick and put that on my request for my schedule junior year.
How did your affinity to news writing develop?
To be honest with you, I've always had an affinity for understanding the current events in the world around me, but never in my life have I ever consumed this much news before joining staff on the Sidekick. I have made reading the news a daily part of my life. It's embedded whenever, every morning I have to check some sort of online article or follow along with news accounts on Twitter, and it's just something that I'd never found myself doing maybe a few years before joining staff, but that's kind of how becoming news editor has kind of found its way into my life in little ways. So I guess that's the way to answer that question.
So nowadays you check your Twitter, right? Your timeline more often.
Most definitely. I don't go exactly for those reasons. I'm just trying to see what other people are up to on social media, but yes, it is definitely a big part. It's become embedded. I see current events, I see what's going on in the rest of the country, things like that.
So what would you say are the best and quickest ways that you get news?
I think as teenagers we have a lot of easy access to technology, at our fingertips. For me personally, I make it a habit to check social media on whatever accounts that I have. So, for example, I go on Snapchat very frequently throughout the day. So I try to make it, productive for me as news editor to just stay updated on events. Like there is a Snapchat story by NBC News called "Stay Tuned" that quickly wraps up general news events that are happening nationally, and that's just one of the many ways that I stay updated with that.
With news being a section where stories have a quick turnaround, how do you stay organized and maintain communication with your writers?
Well, I think the communication aspect is definitely one of the most important things to be doing throughout the writing process. There will be times where there always can't be a photographer or your editor that you usually go to for edits. You have to be kind of independent-minded in that way, that you get, follow up on the process without completely cutting corners. One way to do that is just always be timely. Okay, as of Saturday, I've had an interview scheduled. He didn't pick up. You can note that, make those notes in your news story. You can leave comments, and just for advice for any young, staff member starting out on writing, especially for news, you don't always have to have this long, detailed story. It can just easily be, as of Friday, CISD Athletic Director Coppell did not reply to this email that we reached out to him for. So you can just leave it off like that. It doesn't need to be anything too big.
So I guess you kind of wanted the reader to know that you covered your bases.
Yeah, pretty much. And you don't have to know everything at that second. People are live reading it as you are posting things. So that's just one way to help the audience stay engaged, help you stay organized, and that's I guess the best way of communicating, just making notes of that on your story.
Do you make use of any organization tools to keep up with communication?
I do use on interviews where I have longer questions. I have this voice transcription app that is called Otter. Obviously, technology can fail us. I just want to clarify that, but it is a good backup to if you're worst case scenario, you don't have your writing pen and notepad, or even the voice memos on your phone is not working. So that's a good app to have. And I will say it's not 100% reliable in the transcription of the source's words, but it gives you a good transcript of what they're saying, and then you can always go back and fill it in. So that's one of the
short deadline. That sounds
exactly
cool. Yeah.
Just so y'all know, Otter's very useful.
Yeah, I've introduced Andrés to it. So
Exactly. Do the leadership roles you hold as a Red Jacket and a part of student council influence what you bring to the position as an editor?
Yeah, most definitely. I think our newspaper advisor, Mr. Wofford, really emphasizes the fact that we have to have integrity as reporters, and I think the leadership roles are just another addendum to that. It's I think on the outside it can seem kind of like a burden, almost as resume bullet points to put on for future applications, but I think that it's really not like that for me. I kind of feel like it's just kind of something that has become a part of me. Honestly, to be quite honest with you, I didn't even expect myself to be in these leadership positions, so that's hope for anyone just trying to fill in those shoes for the future. You learn a lot about the history of the school, the city, everything. Just being those kind of leaders on campus, you learn so much about your campus that you've never learned before. Like, for example, in Red Jackets, we recently had a story from Karen Liu, a staff writer, about the Red Jacket timeline that the organization is planning, and I've been grateful to have been a part of that. So I've learned so much about Coppell High School, its rich history, but on a larger scale, I've learned how to have good judgment and just know that people are watching you, despite you feeling just like a normal high school senior.
Very useful skills.
Yeah, basically.
What are some of the lessons you have learned from your time as a student journalist? How do you think they apply to the real world?
In general, I think that as high school students, we tend to always take the shortcut route on things, whether it be assignments, whether it be chores or anything that you have to do. As a teenager, we tend to have like kind of a quick-paced way of thinking, and that can sometimes lead to being misinformed and even in the worst case scenarios, lazy. As you're writing news stories, you will have edits where you have to fact check every claim that you see in your story. You can't just go based on rumors and hallway chatter. It's more than just saying what the buzz of your friends are talking about at lunch. Like it's like actual news that anyone quite literally in the world can see on Coppell student media. So I think that's kind of a heavy way of looking at it, but it definitely gears your worldview in reporting a little bit. So that's kind of one big lesson I've learned.
Which articles should we look forward to reading from the news section this week?
In the news section, we've had quite a few hard-hitting stories that we've published. For example, I recently did a story on the college admissions scandal that occurred over spring break. More than just the scandal itself, I looked into how it applies to the district. We've also done a sit-down interview with the CISD Superintendent Brad Hunt. We also have stories from our 9th grade campus, CHS 9, and this dual language immersion program, Friendship, that kind of blossomed from that program. And lastly, we have a story on the mural development that is occurring in Old Town Coppell.
Awesome. I'll definitely be reading all of those.
All
Thank
right,
you,
well,
Christine.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks to our hosts, Shreya and Shivi. Once again, special thanks to our guest, Christine. Thank you all for joining us in the 10th episode of the Penny Podcast. All links to the articles talked about are provided below. Make sure to join us next Thursday for another installment of the Penny Podcast.